Yo, what is going on, guys? Joseph here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna have a Necro showcase, and I'm gonna keep the short and sweet format, so timestamps will be in the description as well as on the screen right now. And if you want to skim through and copy, feel free. But the full in-depth spec and explanation will be showcased towards the end. And before we start this video, I just want to say thank you so much for the traction I got on my last video. Hitting 40k views, really crazy, and I really plan to keep making Diablo 4 content. So if you end up learning something or you like the video, just please like and sub. I don't have many returning subscribers, as you see, and it is free and you can unsub anytime, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you viewers. I will reply to every comment I can and read every single one. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this build. So on to our general skills here. We're going to start off, we have Reap at 1 out of 5. This is really just to generate Corpse and Essence. It's not really there for damage. Corpse Tendrils 1 out of 5. Stun enemies, make them vulnerable. Bone Storm, very good with bone skills. Increases overall damage, crit strike chance, all that good stuff. Bone Spear 5 out of 5. Most important skill. This is our main damage output. Blood Mist 1 out of 5. It's good for survivability. Make it a few corpses if you need to. And then Ossified Essence will be our key passive. And onto the full skill tree here if you need to pause or copy it. There it is. And if you have any questions about these skills, feel free to comment down below. I will be reaching out to as many comments as I can. But it is a pretty straightforward build. Not very much goes into it besides stacking up your crit strike chance, crit strike damage, essence, just all that good stuff for damage. So, moving on. And moving on to the gear now, we do have 3 uniques that are required for this build. The helmet is going to be the Deathless Visage. This is very important. Bone Spear leaves behind echoes as it travels, dealing extra damage. And every time it splits, it echoes and it deals a lot more damage. Then onto the gauntlets. Howl from below. Instead of detonating immediately, Corpse Explosion summons a skeleton, increases damage by 40%. Very nice to have. And the other unique we're running is Mother's Embrace. Because Bone Spear is a core skill, so every time a Bone Spear or the Shard hits 5 enemies, 35% of the resource is refunded, and it can help you chain those Bone Spears infinitely. Okay, and everything else is just legendaries that are imprinted, so we will go over that. So for the chestplate, 50% or 0.50% extra armor up to 50%, very good. Pretty much just find this aspect on a gear, imprint on your highest power legendary, and boom, you have this chestplate. Same thing for the pants. Bone Storm grants a barrier. Pretty good for survivability, not really there for damage. Our boots, this is very subjective. You can run pretty much anything you want here. This is what I chose to run on the weapon. Bone Spear's primary attack makes enemy hits vulnerable. This is very important because then you get 205% extra damage to vulnerable enemies. This is what helps you get in that 200, 300,000 damage range per hit. Then over to the other ring, 20% extra crit strike chance, 60% extra damage when you cast Corpse Tendrils. Very nice to force crits, very good against bosses. This is a very important perk. I really recommend putting onto a ring to get that double percentage onto it. And let's go ahead and lastly look at our amulet here. Ossified Key Essence passive gives you an extra 1% damage for every essence above 50 up to 47%. Very nice to have this, and overall these all synergize very well. I'm going to go ahead and go over each piece of gear one more time in case you want to pause, read it, grab a screenshot. Whatever you need to do to get this build, you can tweak some things to how you want. If you don't have everything, that is okay. This is just a very late game optimized version of this build. The gear is very specific and it's been tweaked and fine tweaked to be very nice. So that is the gear. Let's go ahead and move on. And onto the Book of the Dead now. Pretty much, this is pretty basic, straightforward. We're going to be sacrificing all of our minions to get extra crit chance, extra essence, and extra crit damage. Plus, in the skill tree, there are some perks that are going to boost these by 60%, so it is going to be a little bit more than what it says in your Book of the Dead. Oh, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next part. So moving on to our Paragon board, so we're just really going to focus on our bone skills, crit strike chance, crit strike damage, max essence, dexterity, intelligence. That is really going to be the path nodes that you want to focus on. Just get all the +5 dexterity, +5 intelligence you can. And down below I got some examples of rare and legendary nodes that we are going to be using. So Flesh Eater, Calcified, Bone Graft, Reinvigorate. They're all pretty similar, just mainly boosting up the bone skill damage, crit strike damage, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get into the full Paragon board here. Start off on the first page, just getting the basic skills. Basic, extra 20% damage. Rare glyph node, extra 20% damage. Here, you can build this kind of how you want from here. I'm going to showcase some of the important glyphs that I have. If you want to pause, take a screenshot, and copy it verbatim, go right ahead. But if you want to build it kind of to fit your playstyle, go right ahead also. I'm just going to showcase all of the major legendary nodes that I am going for in this build. And if you do have any questions or need help building your board, feel free to comment below, and I'll do my best to help you and answer that. But that is pretty much all the Paragon that I have unlocked. So with all that covered, let's go ahead and move on to the build showcase here. We're going to be running a tier 32 Nightmare Dungeon on World Tier 4. And pretty much we're just going to be using the standard setup, tendrils to stun the enemies, bone spear, get the vulnerable on them, and hope that it hits the enemies on the ricochet. We'll use our ultimate here, the big group enemies popping up, tendrils, and we are just going to spam our bone spear. And here we are, wipe all the enemies out, and as you can see it is pretty easy to clear this room of enemies. But they do like to keep spawning. On to the next group of enemies here, and as you can see the bone spear does a very good amount of damage, especially when it ricochets off the walls, and we will use corpse explosion to just clean up. Moving on throughout the dungeon. So hopefully you guys can see how the general build here plays. Right, we're going to use our blood mist to generate a corpse here, tendril all the enemies together, and then use our bone spear. We're going to go ahead and clear the rest of these enemies out, and as you can see, man, that ricochet just does so much damage. And we're moving on to the next area of the dungeon now. Here we are in the boss room. Or not really a boss room, but where they try to trap you in. And as you can see, whenever you tendril and ultimates, the bone spear just shreds. So let's go ahead and move on here to the last part of the dungeon, these two corpse piles. And pretty much you should be able to solo any in-game content with this build. And also you can get this build to work at a lower level, however I feel it starts to optimize and just click very well at the higher levels. And I'm actually going to ignore these shrines here just so I can show how well the build works. As you guys can see, just clearing out these elites. They are very tough on tier 32. Some of them have a shield where you have to be within that little radius to even damage them, which can kind of hurt our ability, but still you see it is no problem. And we will corpse explode and we need to regenerate essence. But with this build and the Mother's Embrace, a lot of the times you won't even have to regenerate essence if you are penetrating over 5 enemies at once. But you guys can see this is a tier 32 dungeon and we are kind of walking through it with ease. Let's go ahead and clear these enemies out. There's the objective down there. Let's work our way through these enemies. I hope you guys can see that the survivability is surprisingly well for being a necromancer. And all the gear that we're using just comes together to give us exactly what we need to just clear entire rooms of enemies with relative ease. Obviously, I am pretty underleveled here, about 15 levels under, but I am still one-shotting basic enemies and, 2-3 shotting elites, which is very powerful, and this build is very strong overall. Let's go ahead and move up here into the last area. We should be able to wipe this out pretty easily, right? Yep, there it is. And that is your Nightmare Dungeon right there. Let's go and wipe some of these ads out. But let's go ahead and get into the build overview. I do hope you guys learned something from this showcase. And here we are at the outro. If you guys have made it this far, I really do appreciate you watching. And personally, I'm smoking that Bone Spirit pack because this takes the spot as the #1 Necromancer build for me. This build is absolutely insane. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope you enjoyed your time, your stay on the channel. If you did, please sub, please like. I will be dropping more Diablo 4 content as well as various other shit, whatever I feel like posting. But thank you guys so much for watching. This is Joseph signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day today.